All right. Well, welcome everyone to a happy hour. This is going to be a big one. We got a lot of stuff to share, a lot of stuff to talk about. I don't anticipate that we will do it in an hour. I think we even schedule it for an hour and a half, and I'll be thrilled if we keep within remote ending time of that. So I do want to start off. We have a lot to share, so I'm not going to do a lot of the tomfoolery and shenanigans that I'm famous for. But I do want to say that I know our website and eShop has been the bane of my and Maria's existence for sure, and probably for many of you, the bane of your existence of the last week. It's been a bit of a drama-filled week for us, and so I want to just apologize to you all for the nightmare that it has been. I know it's not been fun. I know that it's been less than desirable, I'll say it that way, and we are working hard on it. It is currently taking PayPal. The credit cards, man, I wish I could tell you that I knew exactly what was going on there. They're just struggling with processing credit cards successfully. Trust me, I'm trying about every hour to see if they'll just take my money. And no, not so much yet. And we do believe that we were the victim of a hack job for the last couple months. Conspiracy theorists unite as to who might be hacking us, but they did a damn good job this time around. So again, apologies and thank you for your patience. We will extend the Gen Con promotion once we figure out how to extend the Gen Con promotion and take your credit cards. But again, PayPal is working fine. Orders are shipping. On our end that we can't ship orders. It is just on our end at the moment that we can't take credit cards. So thank you for that. And again, apologies for the challenges that we have created for you. Next thing I want to share with you guys is coming up this really quick, August 10th. So that's like, what, 2 days? And hopefully you can see it in your screen now. Walter's Workshop. Many of you guys, oh, Evan's there. Look at that. He wrote, can't wait. Look, Evan, are you there to talk? Like, do you have a voice at the moment, or are you?
I do have a voice.
Look at smooth and sexy there. Let's go. Tell us a little bit about it, Ev.
Yeah, well, you guys graciously invited me to paint on Twitch. I paint on Twitch pretty frequently, and admittedly mostly Conquest. And so I'm really excited. I got the Lineage Prideborn here, as well as a bunch of other spires that I've been working on for this army. But yeah, I'm basically going to go through and show you how I paint the color scheme that I do for the army, and to the best of my ability.
Well, we're excited about that. That's coming up on, let's see, that would be Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern. So join us, please. Join Evan and the team at Walter's Workshop, which I believe probably is Evan. I don't know that there's a team.
Just me. Just the one Walters.
We're excited to bring new content to you. And in that same vein, from a content standpoint, I also want to point out that Konstantinos and Tasso and myself, to a limited degree, have been working with On Tabletop. For those of you that follow our friends from Ireland at On Tabletop, for a look at the Sorcerer Kings this week. It's, I think, officially Sorcerer Kings week at On Tabletop. So for those of you who want to dig in to the actual story and not Leo's version of it, you can join On Tabletop. For those of you who want Leo's version of it, ask him again in about an hour after he's had another one of those cocktails, and I'm sure you will get a great Sorcerer King story. So a lot of stuff, a lot of fun things going on around town. Wanted to also point out something. We just had 2 tournaments last weekend, as I think everyone, well, not everyone, but I'm sure a few people saw on our social posts. James Smith is presenting. James, you got to not present, bud. Thank you. So we did have a bunch of different winners, and I pointed out because I think a lot of people assume always that something is out of balance when they don't win, right? And so I want to point out that in 2 tournaments run the same weekend in the same country, I mean, geographically within, relative couple days drive at most, Wadrun finished first and last. 2 different tournaments, first and last. Old Dominion finished second and third in another one and didn't place at all in the next one. 100 Kingdoms came in second and won. I don't even know. I don't remember that it was even played at Gen Con now that I think about it. I don't remember 100 Kingdoms Army. I may have forgotten, so forgive me for that. City States, second, and another one. First, excuse me, at Gen Con. Didn't place at all in the other one, in the top 5. And then Spires coming through with a 3rd place win. So I bring it up because I think we all tend to get into the "this is wrong" phase. And, sometimes it is about how they're being played, how the armies are established. As we go into some of the things we're going to talk about for the upcoming Chios, I want everyone to just kind of think about all of that. And I think that's kind of interesting data. Granted, it's only 2 events, but it's one weekend. I thought it was kind of different and cool and thought I'd bring it up. So I know there'll probably be a lot of reasons why that people have why this, that, or the other thing. And I'm already seeing them coming in the chat. Bring it. But the facts are still the facts from those 2 events. And I thought it was worth sharing. Next, we have some upcoming events I want to bring to your attention while I've got you. It's summer, but we're still very, very busy. We have Nova coming up. Thanks, Hunter, going to that with all of the Vanguards who will be helping him there. Then Freak Wars. Christoph will be, Yanni will be at Freak Wars. Christoph will be at Crisis. They are the same weekend. One in Spain, one in Belgium. That was pretty exciting. And then we have LGT coming up in London. And then the big daddy for the Europe, Essen Spiel, at the beginning of October. So a very, very big number of times that you can come out and see either your favorite conquistador, or your favorite Conquest person. How about that? And some Vanguards. So I think it's really cool to support the Vanguard communities who are supporting us as well very strongly at all of these events. We're very excited to be there. And of course, we have Chios coming up. And so I'm going to jump right in. Unless there's anything anybody else wants to add about events, I'm going to jump into Chios. Because I think, why not, right? So let me just make sure I've got this queued up correctly. Look at all I'm sure you've told me in the past you cannot hear the chime of my computer that's rings every time somebody joins, but it is constant and it is exciting to see how many people are joining our little chat here as we talk about these things. So let me format the page a bit and then we will be good to go. Why is it not formatted there? Ooh. All right, there we go. So World Championship 2024 is coming right up, and we're really pleased to announce a tremendous list of people who have qualified. And I'm not going to read them all. You can read them as we go, but it's a very exciting time for us. We have 15 of the 16 spots confirmed at this moment, and one still to be announced. We're waiting on just some confirmations, but this is what it looks like. And so Leo cannot see the presentation, and that makes me nervous to think that other people might not be able to. Are you able to see it?
Yep.
No, we can.
You can. Okay. So it's just Leo. Maybe that's that 4th gin and tonic he had. I'm not sure, but God bless him if that's the reason. So regardless, I'm glad you can all see it. There's a lot going on for Chios coming up, and I know Stamo, you are here, right? Oh, there you are. Yep, I see.
Yep.
You. You can unmute. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but this is what it's going to be like in Chios for all of our participants. Beaches and food, really good food, and some of this. And other things to drink as well, I have no doubt. And, it's going to be, I think, really cool to have an event in a tent on a beach. And so, Stavros, Damo, do you want to add anything from a local flavor, since you are far more familiar with what that is like than I am?
So, couple of things to note. Number one, we will not have Mamos beer. We will have fresh Chios beer. Very important.
I did not know what kind to pick for a picture, so.
Number two, Chios is an island, a recluse island. Somebody very famously said that to visit Chios properly, you have to be invited to it. You can't just drop in. So do not expect the Mykonos experience. Okay? Beyond the wargaming on the beach. It's a very chill island. You're going to be in a tiny little village. It's beautiful. You're going to have a fantastic beach literally at your footsteps. But it's not Mykonos, it's not Santorini, so I don't want strange perceptions. We were clear about this before. It is my favorite island, probably because my family hails from there. Details. But that aside, it's a badass island. With a lot of history, a lot of hardship endured, a lot of things achieved for how damaged and hurt they were. And there's a couple of unique things to see if you get a chance to go around, which we're hoping that you guys take advantage of and are actually able to travel around a little bit. And the really, really interesting thing is that for next year, we've been told that if we increase the size of the tournament, and the number of people participating, we will be allowed to perform the tournament in the ruined village of Anavato, which is a medieval village that was abandoned after either an earthquake or a sack. Knowing the history of Chios, it was probably a sacking. So that's going to be pretty damn cool.
That's very cool.
So yeah. Overall, very excited to see you guys arrive. I am hoping I will be able to grill. I am not sure I will be able to due to fire hazard and fire precautions. We will see what the warning level is in September. This is Greece. It routinely burns to the ground. Samo, do you have any more practical things that people might want to know?
I've shared most of things with the participants already. We are pretty excited about it, all of us. I've made sure to share some guides for Athens and here to our participants, some personal favorites that I highly recommend visiting. And this is it. We're pretty stoked about it, and we're eagerly waiting for September.
Indeed. And so if you are not part of that list of the 15, and you are wondering what 2025 looks like, look at that. Whoa, OP Season 4. Guess what, Pussycat? It's begun. I shouldn't even say begins. It started August 5th. So we are ready to go, and it's going to end a little earlier. I think we talked about this when we announced Season 3, but our Season 4 will begin August 5th, so it's already started, and will end on June 30th so we can prepare. And so now both styles of play are going to be at Chios. First Blood and Last Argument of Kings. That's right. You saw it. You heard it. You're going to have to choose. You don't get to be them both for obvious reasons. So you're going to have two separate roads to Chios, one great story of conquest. Steve, you raised your hand. Maybe that was a mistake. You might be just playing with the buttons. I don't know. Did you have a question? I'm guessing you're playing with the buttons. Stamo, do you want to take us through some of the other changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, starting Season 4, the separation between officially sanctioned world events and world community events will exist no more. Now we only have world events, organized either by us or by you, our community. No one is going to be regionalist anymore, because every event will give you points towards gathering a seat. The minimum of 12 players still stands as before, but, and this will delight our German community, you will be able to play fewer rounds, like 3 rounds, although at the cost of participation bonus. For 3 rounds, you will receive only 1 world point as a participation bonus, while for 4 rounds, you will receive 4 world points 5 rounds, 5 per points, and etc.
All right, gang. Pushing the flight attendant button was cute the first time, but stop doing it unless you do have a question.
Given the USA travel realities, we decided to merge the 4 US regions into a single mega region. We hope that this will enable you to host more world events and gather more seats for the final.
If I do full screen, problem is that I can't see the things you're asking me, but we'll continue with this. So I thought I would put up a few of the reasons, Stamo, that we got to these changes. You put out a great survey. We had 99 people respond, and these are all people who participated in OSWEs or WCEs. So they're you in most cases.
Yes, indeed.
And so I think one of the things that we want everyone to be really aware of is that your feedback matters. We're going to fewer rounds because of your feedback. We're counting the US as one region because of your feedback. We're leaving the painting non-restriction, for lack of a better term, although a reminder to everyone participating, you do need to paint for Chios. So get painting if you have any unpainted models, because you don't want to be disqualified after all that time to get there. But it stays unchanged because you all said by 57 to 43, don't change it. And we're hoping to encourage a little bit more inter-country travel. And given overall world events, satisfaction is quite high. Obviously, there are things we can do better, and a lot of that feedback in that 16%, Samo, correct me if I'm wrong, was about rounds.
Yeah, it was indeed.
So, again, if you think you don't have a voice, know that that's the reason all of these changes made. I know there was a request to go back to the number of participants, so I will do so now and then take questions. Don't worry, I'm going to fix it.
Can I comment? I see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, King. Sorry.
I'm curious about the decision to make the entirety of the U.S. one region instead of maybe two. And then it's currently, what, 3 or 4 right now?
It was, I think, 4.
Okay. Like, I know that there was some grumbling about being there 4 different regions. I honestly, I gave feedback saying it should probably be about maybe 1 or 2 to 3. But I do appreciate the taking of feedback. Thank you.
Sure. I can answer that. We did think about cutting it from east and west. But one of the challenges is as I think everyone's aware, in the U.S., a lot of the big events occur in the middle of the country. And so the U.S. will be a large region overall geographically compared to many of the other ones, although not. Reese will be wagging his finger at me momentarily if he's not already doing so, because Australia dwarfs us significantly in geography, soy population. So don't yell at me on the other side for that. But what we looked at was if the U.S. gets its act together and puts on more WCEs, they'll send more participants. Because one of the things that you'll see, obviously the U.S. is sending a fair amount of participants here, but not the most. And so we felt that putting them all together as one group, at least for season 4, doesn't mean this is cast in stone forever, made sense.
Can I also add a few comments here just to? So there are a few things here. There's a great question that answering it, I think, will explain a lot of the rationale behind it. So we get a question from Twitch that says, how does this affect the regions that are running the majority of the events? So the Mountain West puts all the work into running US events and the whole US qualifies for those spots. So I think the question ultimately comes down to who, in terms of players, are qualified in order to come to Chios. And there's two things that you need to be aware of. First of all, from now on, we're talking about one kind of event, right? So we're not talking about a separation between community events and officially sanctioned events. We're talking about these counting as there's now one type of event. If you're playing in the west of the US and you're part of the community that plays a lot, well, you will be gathering a lot of world points and you will be the one finding yourself at the top of the leaderboards. Now, of course, to keep things fair, now, like before, we had, your 4 best community events and your 3 best officially sanctioned. Now you have your 5 best events, period, total. And like we said the previous time, when we're talking about a best event, we're not talking about placement. We're talking about the kind of event that nets you the most points. So it doesn't matter if you're first at one event and fourth, let's say, in the other, whichever one gives you the most points is the one that is considered the best. Now, if your region plays the most, yes, theoretically, it qualifies the entire of the U.S. So you're the one, your community is the one qualifying the country. But when it comes to you as a player, if you're the one playing a lot of events, and if you're the one traveling to a lot of these events, you're going to be the one qualifying. So it doesn't matter which group helps the country qualify, really, because ultimately, if you're part of the group that plays the most, it's going to be you're going to be some of the players that will actually get the most world points. Always taking into consideration that if you think about, how these big events, the ones that net you a lot of points in the U.S., given based on the feedback we had from the U.S. players, you do tend to meet up at things like Adepticon. You see all these major events that are the ones that ultimately net you those points. So now it's a lot easier for you to actually get that spot if you deserve it. And it's a lot easier for the U.S. to qualify the amount of players that actually is, makes sense for the size of the U.S. community, which the current program right now doesn't allow.
And in terms of regions, the region is going to be based on where you sit. So even if you play all of your events in the U.S., but you're based in Montreal, you count for Canada. Just like an Olympian. They may be doing the Olympics in France, but that doesn't make them not American. Mark, you have a question? Sorry, caught you mid-paint.
Yeah, you're right. So I just had a quick query about First Blood being part of the Road to Chios. My community's pretty hardcore on Last Argument of Kings, but I'm trying to generate a lot more interest in First Blood. So in terms of the world points, is there a separate pool for, say, First Blood events and Last Argument of Kings, or is it if you're engaged in a world event for either game, you get points that contribute to Road to Chios?
Sorry, I didn't quite follow the question. If you could do it.
Yeah. So if you play in so if I run a First Blood Worlds event, do those Worlds points contribute to allow a person to possibly qualify for a Last Argument of Kings place? Like, can they build up their points by taking part in First Blood tournaments?
No. You would have to focus on the game that you want to develop. It would be unfair to allow somebody to play First Blood and get into the TLAOK argument, or play TLAOK and get into the First Blood.
I was thinking it was pretty easy to rock through a bunch of First Blood events compared to Last Argument events. So that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, there are 2 separate roads to Chios, as I said on my slide. One Conquest, but 2 separate roads to Chios. It doesn't mean you can't play both, but you're not going to be able to qualify for both. Leo, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I mean, yeah, it's only fair, and these are two separate equal brothers, two equal systems. We have to make sure that if you are going down the path of First Blood or if you're going down the path of TLAK. Of course, you can play both, right? But ultimately, you're going to have to choose which one you want to participate, right? So if you are such an active player, you find yourself, qualifying, let's say, at the top of your rankings for both games, you're going to have to choose one or the other ultimately. And that's important to know that, yeah, you're not going to be playing First Blood, and that ultimately will get you a place for TLAK. Two games equally and separate for Chios.
Adam, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Two shout outs. First, one to you as a company for listening to us as players and making these questionnaires, following up on them, making constructive changes. Second, shout out to the vanguards in northern Poland who have been really animating the community in the last 6 months, especially to Paweł Przybysz. Really, kudos to you, dude. And my question would be whether you will be setting fixed quotas per region for the amount of players who could qualify for Chios for both games.
Well, again, we set it based on the number of World Championship events that the communities themselves run. That is why more people are going from Poland, because you guys put forth a tremendous effort. Australia also got a lot of invites because they put forth, certainly on a per cap basis, more events per cap than the US did, without question. I'm typing to W. Deitch, and forgive me for not. But we actually we hosted the most number of OSWEs in the U.S. We already did our part. It's also up to the communities to host events, right? It's up to each community to post WCEs in their stores or in their clubs and have world qualifying events on a regular basis. That's what happened in Poland, as you point out, Adam.
Just one thing, you mentioned that you would be giving out some premium points for players playing outside of their respective regions. How is that going to work? Leo, you want to take that one? Because I don't remember mentioning that, and forgive me if I know I didn't.
Yes, please, Adam. Can you please repeat the question?
Sorry, you mentioned some kind of incentive for playing outside of your region, like to going to, like, I live in Poland, I want to go to a tournament in Germany. Would that translate to some sort of bonus points or some kind of other perk in terms of?
So this is something that we really wanted to enact, we wanted to discuss, but this is not something that we're prepared to have right now. It's definitely a great incentive because we want to make sure that we cross-pollinate different regions. But for now, we will be revealing more information as we're getting closer to releasing the full packet for the next season.
Okay, thank you very much.
So one thing that I do want to clarify, guys, is I see a lot of people talking about the travel cost in the US. You've got to remember that it is your 4 best scoring tournaments that count. So the US as a whole will create a pool of events that creates a depth of invites, basically, right? The more events that happen in the US, the more invites it will be in the US. Then your relative standing will depend on your points, which are capped at 4 tournaments. So it's not a question of hitting all the majors and just sitting pretty, because yes, there are more players at the majors, but it's also a hell of a lot harder to score high. So it is going to balance out. I do agree that this new approach will tend to reward larger tournaments. But that is also something that the truth is, it's something that we do want to encourage, because small regional tournaments will not be as representative of what truly is going on in a community overall, because you can have very specialized local metas, unique quirks, all the sort of things that come along with this. So so long as you hit 4 events and you do well at them, or they're big enough events, you have a decent chance of getting in. Because it's not only the top 16 players, a lot of people can't travel to Chios, so the pool ends up being deeper. Plus, next year, we're going to have more room. To be honest, we can't answer how much more room until we see how this one goes and how much leeway we have.
Yeah, keep in mind, we haven't had the actual event yet. I mean, we are talking about next year's event because we did want to get things planned farther in advance, and to plan things farther in advance, we needed to start it sooner. So this would be the normal cycle, that it would go from August to June. Apologies to everyone who has an event in July at the moment anyways. We'll figure that out as we get a little closer. Maybe we'll start July 1st next year. Probably we would. But we did want to move further out so people could plan farther ahead for Chios for season 4 for 2025. We are still planning it to be next September. Maybe we'll move it up a week or two, possibly. We haven't decided that yet. But that gives us time. But as Stavro just said, we have not had the actual event yet. So there are some things that we're still sorting out, and we don't want to just, this is a giving you an overview to prepare for. Certainly, many of you have already scheduled events. We want you to be aware of what changes we've made. So as you plan your events, you can make plans accordingly. And also, we certainly want everybody to know that First Blood is taking part in it this year. So you can plan some First Blood events for the many, many communities who love First Blood and don't play TLAOK. And I know there are going to be other people who are like, I don't care about First Blood. I only play TLAOK. Great. We're not asking everyone to play both. We're making sure that we are taking care of both communities. Kang, you have a comment.
Yeah, I just had a question. It's you're still going to have a minimum amount of events to run to take a seat, at least?
That would be the plan. We haven't decided what that minimum amount is yet. We want to do some research about the number of events that occurred. Obviously, as you all know, the last events occurred less than a week ago. So give us a little time.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Like in season 3, yes, TOs will get points for hosting and running the events. That won't change. And obviously the goal with this Maker Flow is to get more than 12 people playing on a regular basis in your area. That's one of the reasons we're doing a Chios type of event, because we want to encourage people to play.
And rather more selfishly, I want to see what the world-like meta is. I have seen so much argument between the European and the American metas that I really want to see them go head-to-head and see what comes out of that.
Clash!
Yep.
And let's not lose sight of the Asian and Australian metas, which are also in many ways different. It is going to be really fun to see what comes out of this. I was having a conversation with someone whose name shall remain nameless. I don't know if they're on here or not, earlier today. And he's working hard to refine his army and is going to bring it hard in a surprising way, because he is convinced that everybody is sure he's going to play one way. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. But it is fascinating, and we love it, and we're excited, and that's why I brought up the variety of, even within the U.S. meta, 2 events, very, very different outcomes. So it's kind of cool. All right, so I think there doesn't seem to be any more questions about Chios. That's good. Everybody seems happy. That's good. So shall we go to the new stuff? More excited for Chios.
I don't think anybody's going to say no to that.
That was more of a rhetorical. So yes, let's go to the new stuff. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Where'd my catalog go? What's going on? Sorry, that was right up there a second ago, and now it's disappeared on me. I'm going to make you wait a second more just as I bring it back up again. I must have replaced it with something else. Still there. What are you doing to me, computer? All right, let's try now. There it is. It's coming. All right, there we go. Now I will make it full screen. Don't yell at me. Nope, we'll do single page. We like that better. All right, and then this little guy here. All right, so now you should be able to see the full page. Yes, no? I can't see anything anymore, so somebody's going to have to say yes or no.
Yes.
All right, good. So I know everyone's aware of these bad boys launching. This catalog will go from the August releases to the January releases. What the heck just happened there? It suddenly got very big screen. But I think we like that better, do we not?
I'm pretty sure we do.
Okay. So this is the August, just a highlight of the Mahout. I think everyone is aware that they have just started shipping and will be arriving at your FLGS. Actually, have arrived at your FLGS. This is end of July, so these are out and live. What am I saying? And then for the Sorcerer Kings coming up, will be the Maharabati Initiates. I'm sure I did not say that correctly. Again, I'm working on it, but I think I came close. Leo, Stavro, chime in with anything you'd like to add about these sets.
So I'm going to start with the lore. Leo will be able to walk you a little bit through the rules. The Mahabharati were created when the Sorcerer Kings were forced to come back to police their own regions. And the Mahabharati were effectively created as a police force against their own sorcerers. They themselves are not sorcerers. They are young kids, usually orphans, taken from some of the most, you can't really call them destitute, but some of the poorest family of the enclaves, and particularly people who want to enter the enclaves from the outside. And from birth, they are an elemental is nestled in their soul. And because they're not gifted, the bond they form with this elemental is very different to that of a sorcerer. So what they end up having is a series of elemental abilities that grow depending on their character and their bond with the particular elemental that they have. That they use on an instinctive level, unlike sorcery, which requires sort of premeditation and structure. It's more constrictive, and what they can do is much more limited than, let's call it, pure spell casting. But it's faster, it is more intense, and it's crucially very, very difficult to dispel, which is what makes them so dangerous against sorcerers. So yeah.
So yeah, Leo, you want to give them a quick bit about how they play?
Yes. So there are a number of things to consider when designing Mahabharati. So first of all, we're thinking about, you have the Razakor and how they play and how they synergize, first of all, by being your character bunkers, by playing with your Raz, by, being there to support your characters or even play with them and help them, let's say, push their plans forward in the case of Raz and Sardar. And so the Mahabharati warriors were, I'm going to say, a little bit of a challenging design, but at the same time, very fulfilling. On one hand, you want to give a regiment that progresses your gameplay without clashing and overtaking what the Razakor are there for. So that's very important. So two things now. First of all, as opposed to your Razakor, your Mahabharati are not as, let's say, they're not your they're not your mace and shield, heavy armor infantry. They're a little bit, let's say, more fragile. But to make up for that, first of all, you're gaining arcane conduit. Now, those of you that are playing Sorcerer Kings, you know how important that is. The ability to be able to score a little bit, to generate this few extra elemental tokens are very important. And also, you're going to be seeing a few updates with the Sorcerer Kings when it comes to these, to be casting those rituals. Plenty of great stuff is coming. Then we're going to be looking a little bit with, let's say, some passive synergy between the Mahabharati and other elementals, right? So the Mahabharati are this regiment that wants to move forward and play the objective game, and they're there to work together with your elementals in the army to make sure that they do it. Now, as Stavros said, they're not wizards, right? They're not spellcasting, but they do have that passive special rule of the Wizard of One, mostly for you being able to cast, let's say, use them as conduits for rituals, because they do have that elemental spark. But they're not spellcasters in the sense of you're not going to be able to cast spells, like Stavros said. Very important. We're talking about things like some very interesting things. We're talking a little bit about Lightbreaker. We're talking a little bit about Cleave One, some a little bit more spicy abilities to help you progress your play, and just very excited overall about the abilities that you can bring into the table with your Mahabharati.
Now, I think everyone is aware that the Stoneforged are coming this month. To get that right now, they'll come out the end of August. They have started shipping to all FLGS stores who pre-ordered them, and we had him on display at Gen Con, and the response to him was fantastic. People loved the look and the size and the scale. And Stavro, I don't know if you want to add anything, but I know this is one we've been talking about. I think since I joined in 20.
Lore wise, I'm gonna let Leo discuss the rules. Lore wise, what I particularly enjoy about these is it's one of the few times we've strayed into the realm of individual lore. These creations are owed to one particularly deranged steel shaper. And I like moving away from the more generic background and the more sort of like cultural focus and economic macro look, to point out that occasionally there are geniuses, there are people who heavily influence the flow and the direction and the course of history. The results are impressive and usually copied by others very, very quickly. So yeah. That about sums it up. Leo, are you back?
Yeah. Sorry, I had a little bit of a technical problem. Yeah, so for me the model was an attempt, let's say, to give an opportunity to Steel Shaper to connect with something, and something in the sense that if you read the lore of the Steel Shaper, how there's one of my favorite lines. You probably read it in First Blood, how they've reached a level of elemental, let's say, power and potency that some of the Dwegom do not really consider them Dwegom anymore, right? So this model was a little bit of a researching how to connect the Steel Shaper, what would it be that gentle or not so gentle giant that would let's say connect with a Steel Shaper. And we're trying to play a lot, with the concept of the elements, with the concept of steel shaping through things like magnetic conduit, trying to reference a little bit back to the faction special rules, and help it connect its spellcasting with it a little bit more. Overall, you're getting this very strong objective claiming piece, and it's there to act as a place of power for a Steel Shaper to project their power outwards towards the rest of the table. It's there to play as a control piece, get your objective zone, at the same time synergize with all the great abilities that the Steel Shaper can bring on the battlefield.
And I jumped us ahead quickly while we were talking, Leo, because I know Flame Berserkers people are pretty familiar with, but maybe they hadn't seen the 5th anniversary remix and the Magma Forged. And happily, people have responded beautifully to these because we've already sold out of the first run. So thank you for everyone's support. More will be available in September, but everyone who pre-ordered it, I thank you.
And I have to admit, these are a little bit of a... Daryl, can you scroll the page down a little bit so people can see the full minis?
Yep.
These are a little bit of a passion project of mine. The Reforged. I am looking for every conceivable way of reforging old miniatures into newer versions, you can see the quality increase. So I don't think I need to explain why. But, you know, frankly, I'm kind of tired of people pointing out our early miniatures and saying they're not as good as they could be. And I'm like, well, they're less polite than that. I'm aware. And I love being able to do this and being able to update things to showcase where we are right now instead of where we were 5 years ago. So expect more Reforged.
And I
wherever
love
I
that
can
you
fit them in.
guys.
Not the easiest thing in the world.
I love that
so
you all
don't expect
supported
too
it.
many.
Well, I love that you all supported it because I was the one telling him we're better off doing something new than something old. And you all proved me wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. So keep that up. Jordan, you have a question?
Actually, it's more of a comment. I worked the booth at Gen Con.
You sure did. You worked your butt off at it.
I did, and I got COVID. Recovering all right. But yeah, to that point, we had numerous people that talked to us. I showed them like that this is happening, and people were generally excited. The comment was, oh, it's really great to see, you guys as a company, like, making new minis from your older ones. Because people did bring up a couple of the older minis, but I'm like, we're working, like, I was like, they're working on it. Like, this is coming out and these look great. So, that I know that's not like a, everywhere data point, but that's something that I had at Gen Con multiple times. So, kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to get to something brand new. Where's Jeff Warner? Is he on this call?
Oh, I'm
Jeff,
sure
you
here.
there?
The hands go up.
Kang, we're not even going to get to tell you about it. Here comes all the things. All the things are coming quickly. Hands in the air like you just don't care.
I'm so glad. I do have one question real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And can I run 6 of them like I wanted to? I'll take that as a no.
That would probably be no. Leo is the one to tell you that, but I'm guessing Leo. Somebody else wants to run 12. That's good.
How exciting is that, first of all? But to talk about this, we're going to talk a little bit about. I don't know if we're going to do it right this second or a little bit later, but there is some talking to do about the Wadroon. I mean, today it's let me show you. I even put my good shirt today. So what I will tell you right now, it's important to understand that it comes with other changes, right? Let's say the magma forts, they're not the only thing being reforged, and let's say that we are going back to factions and we are doing that beautiful, let's say, rules reforged when it comes to looking at factions holistically. So I tell you right now, you have to keep in mind that it comes with a lot of other things. The Quado is going to be the first airborne regiment in the game. Airborne, unlike fly, is something that always flies. Now, immediately I know the question. No, it will not help you block your charge raises. It will not help you block your movement. It will not allow you to capture objective zones. You will have to move it out of the way if you want to move a regiment and you overlap with its base. Don't worry, all of that has been taken care of. I'm just throwing it, front-loading that just to make sure we're all on the same page. And we are looking at the very, very, very first, let's say for lack of a better term, flyer. And when we're talking about flyer in Conquest, like we're always trying to be realistic, or I mean, as realistic as we can be about big dinosaurs flying with Wadroon on their back, right? We're really excited to see how they would actually perform on the battlefield. What would their role be? And the story essentially is, think of that Predator flying, and you heard me well, Predator, flying on the back of that Quado, synergizing with those that are hunting on the ground, calling out targets, being that aerial observer, and synergizing with a whole, let's say, ecosystem of what the speakers are. I'm saying very particular words right now because I'm being very precise, but I don't want to tease or spoil anything. Right. So when we're talking about, let's say anything that is purely airborne in the game, you have to keep in mind that we make sure design wise that we are, let's say, realistic in how we would work with that within that faction. This isn't your typical I just fly and I throw things and I kill things far away. You have to work for your synergies. And we're just super excited to be able to give you a very, very, very exciting piece of gameplay with Quado. And could I even say that you see two different Wadroon writing those? One is a regular writer, just part of the crew, let's say, of the Quado. The other one might actually be a character writing that Quado with their very own abilities and special rules in playstyle. So, plenty of exciting things to come.
Yes, I think people are getting the gist of it. Stavro, I have not yet seen this model in person, of course. What is the overall perspective and size?
Well, you guys know that our Wadroon are significantly larger than humans. I should have put a banana in for scale in there. Apologies for not thinking of it. But it is not small. It goes on a monster base. This is not the what were they called? The flying dinosaurs. What were they called? The little ones, the ones everybody.
Pterodactyl?
Yeah, exactly. This is not a pterodactyl. This is a Quetzalcoatlus. This is the pterodactyl, the pterodactyl's granddaddy.
Is the overall length similar to an apex predator?
A little bit shy of the apex predator.
That gives everyone everyone knows what an apex predator looks like. So, and it's going to stand on a base, and there's been some question about, is that stand that it's going to be flying on, how does it attach to it, and will it be...
It's the standard round bit interface. It has to be glued. It can't be snapped. And it glues to the base directly. It glues directly to the monster base. We've tried it with a heavier resin model. We had no issues. In the case that you do the typical thing that you're reaching over the table and your hand pushes down on the model and the model pops off. It's one of the reasons why we chose to make the contact points not incredibly large, so that the first thing that gives is the contact point and not the model itself. You can also magnetize, which is even safer, but not everybody can do it. So we made it about as Joe-proof as you can make it. Because if we went for like really wide bases, what we saw is that very often you would end up breaking the model rather than the base, and the base is much easier to repair.
And the overall width will be wider as well than, say, a typical monster, correct? Because those wingspans.
Yes, the wingspan is massive.
Yeah. So this is going to be a big boy.
Needless to say, plastic, not resin. Because I see somebody saying they're terrified of resin models. This is not resin. This is plastic.
Fully plastic.
We just tried it with a heavier resin model, and it held up fine because we don't have the plastic proofs yet.
This is strong enough for me to zoom around the tournament room making noises. 1000% yes. I think that's a must next year at Chios. Everyone who plays Wadroon must make noises as they fly it around this table. I think that's a definite must. It might even qualify as painting.
Yeah. Apologies for the confusion. I will say it once more. Plastic, not resin.
But is it plastic? All right, so should we move on to the next big thing that people are excited about? The Chosen of Death. Oh, I think hands just went up. That sounded like hands going up. Kang, you had a question?
Not a question, just a reaction, because you guys are just making my day. Thank you so much.
That's our goal.
Those Chosen of Death are beautiful.
Jeff Warner said, we got to chill. No chilling. Bring it. We're bringing it.
It's me.
Tassos, I should post this, I think. Hold on.
I have.
Go ahead, Joey.
I just have to ask because I asked Stavros. These girls are so beautiful that I had to ask which of our sculptors it was. Can you please let us know?
This was Stavro Karayan.
And she does most of the female
No,
sculpts.
this is
Oh.
this is a guy, and he is actually if you have whatchamacallit, if you've ever used ZBrush, you know his work because it's in one of the sort of preludes of ZBrush. As it's loading, they've got a number of his works on it. He is an anatomy lunatic, which is why whenever we have anything muscly, torso-y, moving with insane motion on a roughly human structure, we try to give it to him.
Props to him. They're gorgeous. I need them.
So
Tassos sent me something I will share. That is the actual model to give you some scale.
But where's the banana?
there is no banana.
You beat me to it, Constantino.
There was no banana in the office at that moment, apparently.
I mean, I know everybody's looking at the flying, not dinosaur, or technically because we have been corrected in chat, but I don't think people have noticed the spear flying, which for me is a detail that makes the model pop even better.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just a flying reptile. Although the grossest detail we did not include is that it doesn't have feathers, the real one, but it does have hair, which is disgusting. I'm glad we didn't include that.
I have hair. Well, some places, and nobody says it. Well, yeah, probably everyone says it's disgusting. So you're right, Hunter. All right, we're back to the catalog. But I thought everyone would want to see the actual picture. Leo, is this a good time to start talking about some of the Wadroon things you sent me to share?
This is the best time to start talking
I
about it,
thought
Carol.
so.
I had to. Sorry, I apologize, everybody, that I'm not showing a video. You'll be surprised. You won't be surprised if I tell you that rural Greece is not the absolute insane place to get fast internet, it seems. So I'm trying to save my bandwidth and keep it as quick as possible. Unfortunately, I have a problem on my end, and I cannot see what Daryl is. Oh, I actually can.
Climb the cults.
Perfect. The cults of Okumazane. So
number one.
I told you guys a few things. First of all, I told you that when I was talking about changes to the Wadroon, I was talking about a lot of things. And before I get into that, I want to tell you that as we're going, and we're looking at our fifth, year with the models, with those supercharged starters that we had, and all of that great stuff, it's important to go back to older factions. We're talking about Wadroon. We're talking about Nords. We're talking about 100 Kingdoms. We're talking about Spires, which by no means not some of our favorite ones, but we want to make sure that we go back and that we reapproach them, just start reapproaching all of the factions with that, with our 2024 set of eyes. And what we're looking at the Wadroon right now is essentially this let's say revisit, this reforged that we're talking. And we're talking about everything. We're talking about graphics. We're talking about making a more beautiful experience, including more lore, including more stories, making it truly the home of the faction you're playing. So let's start first of all with a few things. Hymn of the Brave was a great rule, but it didn't really serve the Wadroon players. So instead, we're looking at the cults of Okunfazane. You're going to notice quite a few things. First of all, that it calls out Cult of War, Battlefield Role, what is this? We're going to be looking at it later. But first of all, what it says is that we're getting Wadrun a little bit more connected with the cults and what they mean for their culture. It's not now just the scion that gives you just access to the to your cults, but also your warlord, and that's essentially what the cults is, taken from the story, and brought to you in the rules. Let's look at the second picture.
All right. You can keep talking, and I'll bring it up now.
Yeah. So, like I said, and I believe, let's see, like I said, we saw a mention of battlefield role. Essentially, a battlefield role. Think of it as a super type, right? So far, when we've been talking about rules, we've been talking about infantry, cavalry, brute, monster. We've been talking about things that are light, medium, or heavy. We've been discussing regiments in these terms. But battlefield roles essentially are this super type. There is this let's say denomination that cuts through all of that, and you now may have, let's say, the battlefield role of underspires. And instead of having to tell you that force-grown drones and brute drones and whatever other thing fits that battlefield role, now we can just talk about underspire regiments, and that will mean all of it. We can, of course, refine the targeting even further now by saying infantry underspire regiments, right? Or brute underspire regiments. Or in other cases, where you can see character, or you can see airborne. They are like keywords, but essentially they serve a thematic purpose within Conquest, within TLUK, that cuts through more than just, let's say, a special rule, but it talks about, let's say, this entire super type. This changes the way that we approach rules. This changes the way that we balance, and that's incredibly important. This changes the complexity and makes it simpler, essentially, to write rules. Right. Archetype might be a better word. Well, seeing if you see its use, you might see, because some factions, let's say, may have a few things that go a little bit further than just that do actually refer to a battlefield role. And yes, this does help us, expand game design, bring better concepts, and refine our current concepts even further. That's incredibly important, because every time we are looking ahead to give you new rules, to give you new designs, we have to create that design space first. And this is a great first step, and that's very important for us. Next up, we're going to be looking a few changes for the chant mechanic. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of details. First of all, we're talking about language that is simpler, right? You saw what we did with the rituals for the Sorcerer Kings. People had a lot of questions with the chanting, so we made the language, first of all, more accessible. The second thing that we're doing here with the chants is that, and be mindful that you're probably seeing this new chant, or Matriarch Queen's chant. What you're seeing right now, don't try to make sense of it with the current rules for the Wadrun. Essentially, we're doing two things. One is we're allowing certain characters or regiment to get a new type of chant. So this new chant, you can see it says chant right by the name, goes outside the scope of your regular chant, and it's something different. Here, for example, in the case of the Matriarch Queen, we have essentially her innate ability, the Matriarch walks, to be provided to regiments as a chant on their own. It tells you what you have to do. It tells you what kind of chant markers you have to spend, and it tells you the ability. What I want you to know is that, as much as it seems that this would compete with the chants that you know of, this version of the Wadrun takes away some of that incredible power that is found at the chants right now, which is unfortunately at the expense of regiments currently, and gives it back to the regiment, or gives it back to new chants. So there is an important redistribution of chanting power done in this new edition of the Wadrun. Next up, you're going to see essentially a little bit of an example of what a battlefield role is. This particular
Trying to get
one.
that to work. I don't know why it's not, Leo. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. We're gonna see an example of how battlefield roles essentially show up in an army list entry. Now, you saw that a lot of redesign work has been done for First Blood army lists, and actually that work started with a lot of design work that was being done for TLAOK. So now you're going to be able to find a section that says battlefield role. Right, and so for example, when we're talking about a character, it would say, let's say, a character, the tribes. The particular example you're seeing right now is from the Matriarch Queen. Now, for ease of reference, I didn't make a larger screenshot because I want to keep some things, let's say, a little bit secret. But you're going to see that the sub-faction logo is largely portrayed on the back of that army list entry, so you can see what subfaction that belongs to, and you can easily see from the design itself. Super simple to quickly recognize what it is that you're using. Now, of course, you can have later on different sort of battlefield roles, like let's say the cult of something, or let's say Scion of Conquest, and so on and so forth. And let's look at the Chosen of Death. Now, I did say that there are a few changes to the chant mechanic. One is saying that you have access to new chants, and the other thing that you have are, let's say, triggered abilities. I know I have been a little bit cheeky here, and I've redacted just a little bit. I just wanted to keep a little bit of suspense. So essentially, a triggered effect is when you chant battle cry, you get whatever the chant of the battle cry gives you, and on top of that, you gain something else. Essentially, now the Chosen, really the tier 3, let's say, that fanatic here doesn't exist anymore. Essentially, now it's part of the regiment that belong to that cult. So the tier 3, let's say, from the cult of death is actually a new triggered effect on the Chosen of Death, specifically designed for them, and no longer fearing the balance implications of having that chant go off indiscriminately throughout your different regiments. Of course, I will say again, that means that important changes have happened to the chant effect right now, right? So it's important to remember. I see a few questions. I only have a...
Why don't we finish these slides and then we'll go to the questions?
Yeah. Then we can see at the Quadro, just for you to give you a little bit of an idea about what it's doing. You're going to see that it doesn't have a class attack or defensive characteristic. That is because later on we're going to see a little bit what it does, and you can screenshot it. We don't have to go through everything right now, but essentially I want you to look at what flyers, what airborne regiments mean for Conquest TLAK. They're not these incredibly powerful shooting platforms that nobody can touch, and they're there to make your life difficult by blocking charge lanes or blocking positions. None of that. We have to make sure that these regiments make sense, in the sense that you're looking at it, they work with the speakers, that is the hunters, the raptor riders, the mounted predators, all that good stuff, all that great things you're going to have going on in your list, and synergize with it. They're not there to single-handedly win you the game. They're not there to be spammed. And of course, you can find airborne in the battlefield roles, very professionally designed by yours truly. And finally, you can check what airborne means. We don't have to read through all of these things. Now, the airborne role is something that we're still finalizing the wording. I'm very happy to share it with you. And essentially, it is there to solve all of those quirky interactions of, I put it just in front of my regiment, so now you cannot move or you cannot charge. None of that. We want to make sure that we don't have these things in the game. So, and this, of course, will be added to the core rules, hence the note. A lot of things for the Wildrune. All the things. And of course, moving on, you're going to see the same treatment being done for everybody. So that is for the Wildrune.
Now there are questions. I have no doubt. Kang, I know, raised your hand. I don't know if there was others that wanted to ask things, all the things. Mike Miller raised his hand.
I did raise my hand, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I really like the profile for the Quaddle. Do you know if that's going to be pretty standard for other airborne units that might come into the game, or if that's just your initial one and you have like 5 different iterations on the way?
So I'll tell you this. The airborne archetype, let's say the airborne style of regiment, is not a regiment that we want to force into the game. It makes sense if it makes sense. Like, the Quaddle, this long distance flyer with a character on top of it, it makes sense to operate like an aerial observer. So we want to make sure that whatever kind of airborne regiment we have makes sense for them to be that way gameplay wise. We don't want this overpowered thing just shooting and being essentially untouchable. So, and actually we have had discussions over, whether future things, we want them to be just to have the fly keyword or the airborne keyword. So honestly, we want to make sure that we're talking about something that is there as a synergy piece, and that is the center of airborne design.
Okay. One other question about the Quaddle. I may have missed it. It didn't have a defense characteristic?
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, the defense roll is either defense or evasion. So in this particular case, it has evasion to roll against.
Okay, just evasion.
Yeah. And the other thing is that it does not really exist, let's say, on the surface level. It can see everybody and it can be seen by everybody. It always, let's say, for lack of a better word, kind of like aviates around, and it will not get into close combat. It cannot charge. It cannot be charged. It can be shot like no problem. There's no penalties. You can bring this down if you really want to. But to actually answer Adam's question, they're not going to fight in the way that you used to. They're not there to do that.
I think we lost Leo, or did we lose me?
We lost you because we
lost you.
Leo was fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's awesome. And if it's okay, I have one final question. It's because I saw Stavros. What's that behind you, Stavros?
Nope, not going there.
What now?
What? Mike Miller has a question.
Yes, just to kind of follow up with the rules question when it comes to airborne units. Since the only way to engage with them appears to be through volley actions as far as trying to take them down, would you determine distance by drawing out onto the base of the monster, I would assume?
Yes, so it's volley and spellcasting actions. Of course, you can also target it, and you are measuring towards it from the actual base.
Okay, that clears that up. Thank you.
And I know everyone thought we were done with Wadroon, but we have one more thing to show you. This is your mounted predator, everyone. And I'll note, all of this is planned to arrive at your favorite local gaming store, otherwise known as an FLGS, for Black Friday, or what we now call Wadroon Friday.
So yeah, there was so much complaining going on about the Brood of Omgora that we felt like we had to give you something that all of you had a chance of getting your paws on. This is resin. We missed it. Damn it. It's a resin miniature. We missed the material plastic there. Apologies, guys. This is resin.
Doesn't it?
It says material plastic at the bottom in the product information.
Oh, yeah, because it does say one resin miniature here.
Yeah.
It's resin. Well, resin is plastic. Kind of. So there you go. That's your Wadroon. We're not done. For everyone else who's going, where's my faction? Reese, this is for you, baby. I know you've already seen it, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen them ages ago, but they're so good. I'm so keen to paint them up.
This was one of the things that I was accused of leaking, or Reese was accused of leaking. I'm not sure which. And this is the other one that we were accused of leaking.
Yes.
They're coming in September.
These guys are so good.
They will be out for Essen Spiel.
And I want to say, are we looking at those beautiful Sacred Band? You know that, for apart from quite a few updates coming, Sacred Band will be a new auxiliary stand option for city states, dropping the microphone and hiding back into the shadows.
I was wondering if you got to talk about that, man. That's so good.
You all are freaking out that you haven't seen something yet, and I'm only halfway through the catalog. Will you guys knock it off? You're being babies. Here comes the next lore campaign pack. 2+ Tough Doug gave our first one a rousing 2 thumbs up. If he had, he does have 2 thumbs, I guess that's how that works. And we're very excited to come back. For those of you that have already purchased the Sorcerer Kings and City States 2-player starter, this gives you another amazing way to play with a campaign style and 2 very cool exclusive miniatures that you see the art for here. And Stavro, or Leo, do you want to take them through the campaign a little bit?
So basically, the campaign is thematically set in the Alerian Plain, which is an area that had long been in contention between the 100 Kingdoms and the city-states. And of course, that's where the Sorcerer Kings decided to plonk themselves and, make things even more interesting for everybody. So basically, this is a battle between Tauria and the nascent city-state enclave there for the future and influence over the Alerian Plains. 2 characters, Indak and, oh dear God, Parisenia.
And your gorgeous STLs for the new Sorcerer Kings and City States terrain,
Which are absolutely phenomenal.
And I will say, sorry, Darryl.
No, I was gonna say we had them live at Gen Con to play City States versus Sorcerer Kings for a demo, and thanks to the Vanguards who painted them just beautifully, and to Elrix for printing them for us at the very literal last second. But people really enjoyed them a lot.
Personally, I just want to say this was just a treat to work on, because these is the kind of scenario pack that as funny as it sounds, they might be they let me, let's say, help tell stories with rules as well, and that's just excellent for me. And not just I don't just try and do Leo lore, people, right? And so this was an excellent way to introduce some great concepts, and even without saying what it is, 2 new game modes to play the game, and I would leave it at that.
Darryl, could we scroll up a little bit to the Sacred Band?
Oh, you want to go back to the Sacred Band for a second?
Yeah, for a second.
I can do so.
I want to call up a couple of points on them.
There was a question about the helmets, and of course, right there.
So helmets, one of the things that we are going to be doing, don't have a timeline for this yet, is releasing STLs for variant helmets, variant shields. Weaponry is going to be harder because it's got gameplay implications for most, if not all, of our units. But we've got to structure this, so don't put a gun to my head about when we do it, but it's definitely something we want to do. One of the things that you will notice here is the aesthetics of the unit depart from your standard city-state aesthetics. They become much more crude, much more ancient, and that was definitely the goal we're going for. Here we left, let's say, classical Greece, and we went into archaic Greece, right? These are Minoan and Mycenaean armors, and the idea is that the Sacred Band are these throwbacks to the very, very early culture, the sort of theocratic culture of the city-states. which is why you see those like Agamemnon and Menelao and Achilles hairdos so prevalently. Now, aware that you guys might not like these, we have an alternate set of helmets for these. They just need to be sculpted and put up for STLs.
Adrian, you have a question?
Yes, it's somewhat related to the Sacred Band and the Dragon releases. Now, those two factions have now essentially their original army lists filled out, and I was wondering if you guys have sort of a timeline for when we can expect the first expansions to those army lists to drop, like maybe.
So I think one of the things that I want to be clear about is that the army builder lists, while they may be complete in your app or completing in your app, that by no means means they're complete. One of the things that we probably jumped a little too far in advance when we first launched was creating an army builder list very, very far in advance so that all options would be seen and available. And we've brought that in a little closer to make sure that we have some idea of the timing of each thing that's going to come out, so that we're not teasing too far in advance, but we are still giving people runway to see what's coming. So there'll be a balance that we may extend a little further out on some things, but by no means just because the app says it's complete should you think it's complete.
Okay, thank you for the answer, and thank you for the good work, guys. Love the models.
Thank you. Jordan.
Yeah, so I really, really like the Sacred Band a lot. I think they're super cool. I do love the Mycenaean armor. I noticed on the shoulders, like the shoulder pads, there are different like faces. Are those some of the old like pre-fall divinities from like the Old Dominion?
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. And then second, and you couldn't say no to this, and I'm not expecting to know like what the abilities are, but you know how like the first lore pack we had, you know, certain units that were like special units. Can you say like, oh, are there like hoplites or like Torequites that I need to get to kind of prepare for this lore pack that's coming out? Because my friends and I want to do the whole Sorcerer Kings versus you know, city states, and I kind of want to do one of those big climactic battles at the end, but I'm a slow painter, so any heads up of which units I should buy would be useful.
I will help a little bit, and without spoiling anything, I will say when it comes to these scenario packs, we go for the staples.
Okay.
We go for the thematic staples of the army.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
One of the things that I see people mentioning having to do with our STLs, there was a learning curve on the STLs. You will notice a significant change in the Gen 2 STLs, and we will go back and revisit the 100 Kingdoms to update them as well. So you guys will be able to re-download updated ones. Again, we'll see when, because we've slammed the poor guy, given how much you guys liked the first expansion. But it's definitely something we were aware of, and this new version doesn't have those limits.
Can I answer a question I see about MN asks, can you implement copy or versioning lists without clicking through it all again, just to make small adjustments? We want to do that. Yes, this is a feature that we want to add, and for sure, it's just quality of life. You want to make different versions of the same list. A lot easier to just copy it. So yeah, this is something that we have on our to-do list.
Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, at the risk of asking a question that's very old and very already been answered.
If you ask about the 100 Kingdoms monster, I'm going to smack you.
I am not, I promise.
Okay.
This is actually regarding, and some of the printer nerds out there can help me. So I'm looking at purchasing a 3D printer specifically to print Conquest terrain for my club. Would I be better off getting an FDM, like the spool printer, or a resin printer for these ones? Which would you guys recommend? And as the people who produce the terrain, where do you guys recommend?
It has 100% to do with your budget. You will always get a better finish on a resin printer, but the cost is going to be somewhere between 4 and 8-fold what an FDM would be, sometimes more.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. I saw all the FDMs popping up.
Kang.
Yeah, I had a question about the SCL2. We've seen 4 now, and they're all buildings. When might we see things like hills and trees or lakes, things like that?
We're holding off on those because honestly, you can use generics. So first, we're focusing on themed terrain, and then we're going to go more into like world specific things. But trees and rivers and hills, you can find fantastic generic versions of that you can simply rescale if they're slightly too big or too small.
Of course.
So that's why they're not our main priority right now.
We appreciate that, but to give somebody else that money because it allows us to produce cooler, sexier things than trees. We like sharing. We're about community. If I make them wait any longer, I'm going to get shot. So here we go. The next item up. Taking care of Nords and city-states with one model. What? Promethean cider. Cider. Tell me, Stavros. Cider? Tomato,
I have
tomato?
absolutely no idea.
Sather.
I say
Cider.
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 It's like a GH Sather.
Just don't call it cider, please.
No, it's cider. It's magic.
No, it's giant cider now. That's for me.
Leo, I was channeling you for that one.
What a model. And a lot of things to unpack here. Who wants to go first?
I'll touch on the lore, and then you can go nuts on the rest of it. So, what's happened is you guys are aware that so far we have had earth, air, and water as our what's it called, Jotnar. And a lot of people notice that the Prometheans could be considered the fire tribe. And it turns out that this is accurate. They were once one group and have since split along ideological lines. The tribes of fire clung closer to their creator's original will, and that's why they split from the others. And the Sathers are now proclaiming the creator's return, and they're traveling throughout the world proclaiming the return of the giant gods, basically. And I'll leave the rest of this to Leo to explain.
So, a lot of stuff to unpack. Okay, so let's start with thematically, we have a character, right? So let's see. So let's in greater terms, we have a character that can work with two factions, the Nords and the Sorcerer Kings. For both, we're going to see a play style, playing around the Jotnars
and the city-states. And the city-states.
And what did I say? Sorry, did I say?
Kings, that's right. It was
apologies. Apologies. Sorry, Nords and city-states.
You're changing our lore again.
I changed the pronunciation. Leo changes the actions.
So yeah, we're talking about this one character that focuses on the giant gameplay of these two factions. Now we're talking. For gameplay purposes, you're going to find, let's say, a similar core design-wise for the character, right? Because it is who that character is. And then you're going to find the, let's say, I'm simplifying right now, but I would say the other half of each of those two designs to shoot the faction that he's playing with. So we have this one entity that is there to bridge essentially the giants. Now, because I had actually that question when I was asked during playtesting, we're not combining the giants from the two factions. These are two separate. They play separately, but you can either play the Promethean. I will call it cider because I just find it funny for the Nords, and the Promethean cider for the city states to enhance that side of you. It is the giant cider, and it will be so for eternity. But yes, essentially, it's there to have this common. It's there to have this common core, essentially, and then, of course, even though conceptually we might be talking about the same character, obviously we're going to see differences to properly suit, each faction that he's playing with. And that is the next thing I want to say is that, of course, the Promethean cider isn't the only great thing that we'll be seeing with the Nords, because, like you saw the Wadrun, the Nords are the ones right up next, to receive this, let's say, reforging, both in terms of expanding their gameplay when it comes to giants, but also, let's say, opening up design space that will allow the room for a lot of their great regiments to breathe and be who they need to be, both competitively and on casual play.
And I'll add one thing from a commercial standpoint for the retailers in the crowd. This will be a dual kit in the new, somewhat against my better judgment, way of doing dual kits. One side will show the Nords version with the Nords packaging designs that people are familiar with. The other side will show the City States version with the City States packaging design you all are familiar with. And they will be the same barcode and same UPC and same box. So both will come in one box. You've asked for it. You're getting it. This will be resin because it is an artisan series, to answer those questions. This was designed by Contraros as well, so it fits the theme of the current Jotners, and it will be similar scale for everyone that is asking that question as well. It'll be exactly the same scale, correct, Sabra?
Correct.
Yep. Other questions? Anyone want to raise their hand, or are we good? I knew there was a question somewhere in the crowd. COVID.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, is this character, can you make him your warlord?
So yeah, when it comes to playing that giant playstyle, yeah, you will be able to make that character a warlord.
Yes, awesome, thanks.
And also, just to give a little bit of a heads up, when it comes to just a little bit out there, when it comes to actually designing and playing with that character, you will be able to choose spear or axe, and similarly, that would give you certain abilities regardless of which faction you play the character into. So to have a little bit, some options, some, let's say, options that you can choose for the character.
So I need to buy 4.
5.
All right, here we go. Next up, the Golter. The Golter Beast Pack for your Nords.
So we were always under the, people have been seeing the Nefhur. Older players have been seeing the Golter as well. Essentially, the Golter are the ones that will be taking the Nefhur Beast Pack's place. The Golter are back. Exactly. Murder pigs. Finally,
murder bacon.
Murder bacon. I have to say, I'm in love with the sculpt. First of all, how ferocious they are, and also the fact that somebody just sat down and braided their hair like after a killing spree, which I absolutely adore. I say this without a hint of trying to be funny. I just love this model. And for those of you that remember the Golter, essentially, they're larger than when we were initially let's say, conceptualizing them. So essentially, they are now, for those that remember the Gold Tour, they're a mix between what the Nifwar are and what the Gold Tour were. Essentially, you have this line-breaking, really angry, sort of murderous pig that wants to just attack without with the absolute hatred and have super fancy hair at the same time.
One thing that I do want to clarify is if you look down bottom right hand of this image, it says models are still in sculpting design. These are actually the volume blockouts and the detail blockouts. So the poses are going to change and they're not going to be as clean. You know, those very clean lines and smooth contours, which, not a fan of.
Can an ogre sit on them? I don't think so, correct?
You know, Adam, we can dream. I
Could
don't
they be
think...
mounted bacon? Could this be mounted bacon? Would JD Vance get in trouble for that?
One of the things one of the things that was very interesting in learning about army design is that much more than what your army is good at, what your army can't do or doesn't have shapes it much more than what it does or does well. And for the Nords, that is cavalry. So you will not see people riding the murder monsters because they are murder monsters.
There's your answer. One thing that we're not showing, but we are announcing, we don't have the images yet for the Nords, because I know everyone's asking about Nords. Steel Chosen will be coming with the murder bacon.
Daryl, you want me to show their model sheets?
Oh, you have them there?
It will take a second to get to them, but yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. I will show the next slide while you're doing that. And,
whoever wrote Bigus just destroyed me.
Whoever wrote what?
Bigus.
Is there something funny about that name?
So here we have the Ender
I have a very good friend in Rome called Biggest Piggus.
Here we have the Ender Marcos and the new reforged tempered steel shaper, both of which are imminent. One August, that being the Dweg, and the other being September's City States push. Hold on, Samuel. I didn't say we were done yet. We're not done till I say we're done. I can tell you, if you've been waiting for Spires, and that's what you're hanging out for, I will tell you that you're done. That I can share with you. Because you just got a bunch of stuffs, and you're going to get some more stuffs early in next year. But you're not getting more stuffs this year. Because you already got your stuffs. And Old Dominion, I can tell you, you just got your stuffs too. Because you just got your stuffs. In fact, you sold us out.
Old Dominion, like you are getting so pampered, it's not even funny.
Yeah, you're both good for a little bit. So whenever you're ready, Stever, you can start.
Yeah, give me a moment. I am no. There we go. Phone.
I stopped sharing, so you can share.
Give me a moment. I got it open.
Yes, City States is getting caught up for sure. They went for a little stretch there without stuff. So I know everybody that plays a different faction gets mad when their faction doesn't get something. I understand. Hello, oh, I didn't know you were from Venezuela. Did our friend Luis Joey make it back yet? Oh, good. That makes me happy. Oh, no, that yep is that you're from Venezuela, not that Luis Joey made it back yet. So here they are, the Steel Chosen of your Nords.
We're finally back to factions that can do large, completely over-the-top, ridiculous banners. I'm so happy.
To answer a few questions about whether they will stay the same in terms of rules, their stats will change, and that is because essentially we have gone through a bit of re-envisioning when it comes to what to do. But we have some great some great rules for them, and they will fit a lot better once you can see and we consider, the larger things we're planning for Nords.
And that also explains why we're not adding things to the army builder quite so far in advance, because people get an expectation of what it is, and then months or years in some cases go by, and we have other ideas that sound fun and interesting. So, do understand that. Jordan, you're up again, baby. Go.
Yeah. So you guys have been talking about the two factions I play, Nords and City States. So Steel Chosen, they are they going to be like size-wise, like kind of larger than normal humans? Because I'm not sure if they have a bunch of like, Einherjar blood in them or not. So I was just kind of curious size-wise how they'll compare to some of the other like normal infantry and Nords.
The Chosen do tend to be slightly larger. We have in the past sometimes gone a little bit over the top with size increases, so we're going to make sure not to go over the top, but you will see a small uptick, because yes, I mean, when the word Chosen, which somebody has pointed out that we use way too often, and they're not wrong, but I like it. It's a good word. I will keep it, unless Daryl tells me not to.
Yeah, well, I have to admit on this one, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to screw up Steel Legion and Steel Chosen all the time. But we're going to go with it anyways. We're going to figure it out.
That's why the next faction is the Chosen of Steel.
No.
Very good, Hunter.
The Blooded Chosen will be the next faction.
Oh, you guys are killing me.
Okay. Point taken. I know where you live.
All right, so we're not done yet. I told you we weren't done yet, so I'm taking over from Stavro again.
Oh yeah, let me undo.
No, stop sharing. There we go. Good. I'm sure there are other things in that
so
folder,
many
Stavro.
secrets trying to not to leak all the secrets.
That's why I took over quickly.
Nero,
so, it would just be a mistake. So I think everyone has seen the tease of our coming Flounders exclusive. We showed it in a non-painted version at the last happy hour. We had so much fun at Gen Con with this painted model, and people just lost their minds with it. It was really cool. And I know this was actually the last happy hour's naming of the Flounders exclusive. It was brilliant. We're living into it. So yes, behold, the Sharknado of Conquest has arrived. This will be a Founders. It does not mean this is the new Founders exclusive. We're just having some fun with this one. This one, as I think everyone is aware, can be your warlord for any faction you choose. And they will be sequentially numbered, each one to 1,555, because it is our 5th anniversary, and thus the Testing the Waters has been born as such. So a lot of fun. Not a serious model by any means, but a seriously looking model that you will have a great time painting. And no, I mean, you can install a laser light in it, I am sure, in some manner or another. Someone will get clever, but no, it does not come with the laser light. That is strictly for marketing purposes, but you gotta admit, it's kind of cool.
Guess what, though, Daryl, as well about that model? You can use it to as an aesthetic substitute for your warlord, if that is a infantry or cavalry or brute stand. You can use that instead in your warlord's place. Of course, with the rules for your warlord, but you can officially use that model in our tournaments. And I would love to see the next Road to Chios having 2 Flounders warlords fighting against each other. Yeah. It's a proxy arc, essentially, yeah.
That would be awesome. We also teased to people a couple weeks ago, and people also have lost their mind over Fishidius. Don't say it too fast because you're going to spit on people. One of the fun things about Fishidius is that It is a fish gnome. It goes against everything Stavros loves about Conquest. Everything. He's mad at me because I suggested this. However, one of the things that I've really done to piss him off is we've created pumpkin spice Fishidius. You will find random orange pumpkin spice resin Fishidius, 10 of them, randomly inserted in the boxes of this fine murderous fish gnome. And if you find said pumpkin spice, you will win the Old Dominion Founders exclusive that we have run out of print on. You will receive that as a badge of honor that will include Stavros' signed certificate of authenticity. So there you go. The fish gnomes
Or
live.
the Old Dominion Founders exclusive for nothing else.
Daryl, you could have not. I can tell you how I topped the things that we can bother Stavros about. The Fishidius actually has Leo lore printed in.
It does. That's right.
It does.
He's written his own story. So if you're looking for Leo lore, the Fishidius, in addition to having his own scenario play, you have Leo lore in there.
Well, I didn't even read it. I just had Daryl go over it for let's not get sued.
That's still possible. I'm not ruling that out. Hunter,
And
you have your
I
hand up.
refuse to even look at it. I have no idea what he's written. I will never know.
I think you're neglecting the opportunity to call it scary spice instead of pumpkin spice.
I did think about that, but I have a member of my family who works at Starbucks, so pumpkin spice was front of mind as I think
Fair
it
enough.
changes hands. I think we all changed the pumpkin spice in our house like in a day. So, Kang, you're next.
So just think, this is an April Fool's joke 5 years ago from one picture.
And now it's a
We'll hear
Halloween
now.
joke.
When are we going to get an Easter one, huh?
Never say never, my friend. Never say never. And then, of course, on a more serious and significantly classier page, as you see next to it, we have the iconic art series, the first 3 pieces. And yes, that is a Gen Con promotion. If you buy 2 of them, you get the 3rd one free. So again, just for those of you who joined late, we are going to keep that going as soon as we fix our beloved eShop / not really beloved eShop. So, ta-ta! All of you who have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for 100 Kingdoms. Haha, no pictures. However, yes, you are seeing it. You are seeing the beginning of a new beginning. And I'll just let you take it all in for a moment. You never said it was a monster. No one said anything about it being a monster. It's just a name.
Daryl.
It has
It literally says monster expansion.
It says it
I
right
was just
there.
teasing them.
Can I say anything without saying something? Can I share something
Sure,
about
Joey.
what we're reading? Okay. For anyone that knows me, I play Spires. I'm a Spires main. I like Spires. I have never wanted to play 100 Kingdoms. I don't care about Knights and Cav. I don't care about the dudes. I am so excited. I am beyond excited. I need this model. I will play this army. I just want to share from an outside of 100
That's
Kingdoms
hard.
perspective.
That's huge for Joey to admit.
I am insanely excited. That's all I want to say.
And yes, you guys that read carefully have noted that men-at-arms are being reforged or remixed, depending on what we stick with for a title. We've used both. We're very excited.
So ask Daryl. I'm worried he'll hurt me if I ask.
You can show the head. I will say we are still
The
working
problem
on
is we haven't decided what head he will have
well,
or
then
how
we
many.
then we shall wait. Then we shall wait. Because that will be a problem. We are going to show this to you. It'll be part of the post Halloween, so early November happy hour. These are planned as part of the January 2025 launch. So this will kick off the new year with a whole new look at 100 Kingdoms and their relationship to the church. And I don't know if you want to expand upon that a little bit, Stavro, from a lore standpoint, or Khan. Both of you, I know, have been heavily involved in how we are bringing this a fresh approach.
I think it's good fortune. We actually had the meeting today about discussing some details over this, and yes, this is going to be a major narrative for the 100 Kingdoms, and I'll just drop there that, and not only for the 100 Kingdoms.
It's a major narrative for the entire world.
Yes, but as we are now looking at it from a 100 Kingdoms point of view, it is going to be a huge change that comes within the faction. It will be, and I will tease this as well, the second big change that will come within the faction. Stay tuned for tomorrow. All I'm going to say. And you're going to see in this kind of story, you're going to see that what we've talked repeatedly about, the laws governing this age of balance, you're going to see them in effect in multiple ways. All three laws will come into play as things move big. I don't know if we want to go further than this, Stavro, but I will just remind the three laws, which is belief is power, power attracts power, and power corrupts. All these three will come into play as they have done before, but in a different and we think more interesting way for multiple factions in the near.
Yes,
and
tomorrow is the
future.
refresh living world, correct, Khan?
No, tomorrow we'll reveal the canon ending from the narrative campaign of the 100 Kingdoms versus the Dwegum. And we are going through the living world and a dedicated spotlight both. They're going to have the same text, but we want to make it easy for the people to kind of follow. We're going to showcase a short description of what happened in the in the campaign and what the result based on the campaign was, as well as the kind of later repercussions of both for the victor and the loser, but mainly for the victor, or maybe more significantly for the victor, because that is a good way to reward the victor, we think. So stay tuned for tomorrow. It will start one great narrative in the 100 Kingdoms, like properly. Things will be kicked off in a certain direction that we'll see where they will end up before we set up for the second, which is restoring the faith.
So lots of good things to look forward to. Many, many good things. January of 2025 is the anticipated kickoff to the Restoring the Faith. Flyers, you got something, so you're not getting anything else.
If I can just capitalize on what you said, Daryl, and with that in mind, the release frame, you're going to have a lot of things happening lore-wise from, I think, mid-September or early September, depending, all the way to some significant releases that come early next year. And you will see that things tie in, well, I'm not going to say neatly because things tend to get chaotic, but nicely.
And I love that you all proved my point, is that you can read the rules when you choose to, because you did read that said monster expansion, even though I tried to take you away from it. You all read it. So next time you say you didn't read the rule book, no, we know you read. Johan, you were first.
I actually have a question. Are the Crusaders basically the replacement of the original squires on foot?
No, they are intended to complement and basically fill out along with the Archangel, and the possibility of certain masteries on, noble lords, to flesh out the theist subfaction within the 100 Kingdoms.
Okay, thank you.
Dogs of Paint, you're next.
Okay. It is one question, or more like asking for a favor. When there's
Well, friend?
when there's phasing out of older model kits, like the Man-at-Arms or stuff from the Dweghom, please do the old player base a favor and don't phase out like other companies does it.
No, man, you
ago.
spent money. You spent money to buy those miniatures. We're not gonna we're not gonna phase out your models.
You don't have to buy the new ones. You do not have to buy the new Men-at-Arms when they come out. You can. Commercially, I'll love it, but you don't have to.
I mean,
which is why you see me put them in dual kits, so that you can just buy the dual kit for the original model, and leave it at that. Or if you want, you can buy them and update your old models as well. I will always try to do this, not to basically screw people.
Yeah, that is great, because it was a little bit of fear of mine. At the other point, I love to see old models with new models combined, because it gives, when you combine them on the same stances, it gives a lot
even more variety.
Yeah, and that is the last point I want to ask. There was in expansion sets for, I think for Spire it was, and some other factions, there were other head options and shield options.
Yes,
are you
I
going
mentioned...
to make them STLs? Because it would be great to have them to make more variety.
I mentioned that a little bit earlier. You must have missed it. They are definitely planned. We very much want to do this. We just have to structure it around all the madness that is coming next year.
Okay.
And you get a hint of what that madness is. If the January release is, basically a sub-faction for an army, you get an idea of what next year is like. Although we'll focus on this year, or Daryl will kill me.
Okay, thanks a
The
lot.
Magic 8 Ball said that I was not to disclose the new faction, and those of you who are on a certain channel know of what I speak. The Magic 8 Ball prohibited me from telling you anything else beyond this.
Okay, thanks a lot for the information.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? I did not say that. I have one more. Oh, Adam, you have a question. Adam? Adam lowered his head. I'm going to show one more screen before I do. I know there are more questions, but for all of you who asked, the 5th anniversary t-shirts. Yep.
And finally, my City-States one.
Your City-States one is coming. Your Old Dominion's coming. Your Sorcerer Kings are coming. I think Kang was first. So Kang, I'm only charging you $1 a question now.
Oh, okay. I'll gladly pay it.
Okay, fair enough.
This is more of a lore question with the Living World. It's directed at Stavros and Konstantinos. All right. You got to settle a debate for me. Is it desert snake or dessert snakes?
By my pronunciations, I go with dessert because that goes with cider, and that sounds delicious.
So that's a follow-up to that, if that's a possible answer. Are there actual desert snakes or dessert snakes, or is it just like a Wadroon thing to eat snakes for dessert?
No, they are also snake ciders that you can
snake cider
you can enjoy with your.
How do you mute, Daryl? How do you mute? I know there's a mute button. I know it. I know there is a mute button.
Lavia? I'm not quite sure. Forgive me for butchering your name like I butchered cider.
Don't worry. Sorry if I come back to rule-wise question about Airborns. I would like to understand and sorry if you already tell us, but if you use the model to cover another regiment you have. So you put the model in front of the regiment, and the enemy want to charge through it. If the enemy do enough movement to collide in the regiment you want to charge, the airborne model will move or will keep standing and deny the charge.
Because I'm not entirely sure what I heard, I think I did. So here's the thing: there is never a situation where the airborne model's placement will affect your charge. If you have to move the airborne model, then be it. And the good thing about that is because we don't have issues of line of sight. It can see and it can be seen everywhere. That moving is not easily weaponized. So it's there to make sure that we understand that there are situations that something needs to move, and we make the choice to say that you will never have your moves denied because a airborne regiment is placed somewhere. You always move the airborne regiment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Carlos, you are next.
First of all, I will say everyone in my community right now is losing it all for the new models for the 100 Kingdoms, which is good for me because I am a store order now. So,
indeed,
people is going crazy right now. Really, beautiful models. City States and North player, I'm very happy with the Artisan series. I maybe will get 2.
You broke up a little bit there. What was that last part?
Sorry. As a City State player and North player, I will get 2 Artisan series for the 2 giants because it's a beautiful model.
Thank you.
And I am really happy right now because all the new stuff is coming, is getting all the people in my community really crazy. And well,
that's good news. We're happy about that.
The only thing I am going to say is it's the best time of the year to be a new store for Conquest in Peru.
It's a good time of the year for everyone to be a store owner for Conquest at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Adam, you're up next. Oh, maybe Adam didn't want to ask a question. Jordan, you are next.
Sorry, just tapped the wrong switch. Question for Leandros and Reese regarding Sorcerer Kings. It's quite easy to notice that there are no officers in the list. Is this intended for the faction to not have officers at all in the future? Or is that some kind of design space that you're considering to explore at some point?
So I will tell you this. In regards to officers in general, we have been, you might have been noticing, and we did openly talk about that in the past, that we have revisiting the way that we approach officers for a number of reasons. First of all, if they're not game critical, and we rather not do them because that makes essentially your regiments cheaper to buy, right? Always we want to make sure that the game is more accessible, and oftentimes accessible also means affordable. So if we don't necessarily need something there, we're not going to add it just for the sake of it. Now, the other hand is that for the Sorcerer King specifically, essentially Sardar, it was kind of the officer that made more sense for him to be like a sub character, somewhere between an officer and a character himself. But then when it came to the point of summoning elementals, we did not really see very fitting adding an officer in the traditional sense. It didn't make a lot of sense, let's say army list, but also lore story-wise. If you are to conjure more powerful elementals, just might as well conjure more powerful elementals rather than conjure, let's say, you're a free and also a special free to lead them. So that's why we didn't opt for them. Of course, if we later on see the need, we can revisit that. But for now, Sorcerer Kings were designed without having officers in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Jordan.
Okay, so yeah, it wouldn't be a happy hour if I didn't ask. So, Weaver Courts when?
Drizzt.
Wow.
Love you, Jordan.
You weren't really kind of expecting that to work, were you?
Hey, a girl can dream.
Drizzt, you're next.
Okay, can you hear me good?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So first off, thanks and for all the good work that you're doing. So we had a discussion lately in the German community, and there was a question: what's the state for the secondary objectives? Because we don't see them in play very often, and they're also not mentioned very often. So that's just a question because it's kind of a interesting design space for the different factions. I just wanted to know if there's anything coming there.
Yeah, so secondary objectives are definitely a very interesting part of the design. They're right now they exist in a more casual space. I think priority right now for us dictates definitely going back and doing the reforging of certain mechanics and factions that we want to make sure we bring up to par. Then, of course, we're talking about a few balance things. I'm going to throw one out there. Blasphemous Soma maybe will not have a +1 to the reinforcement roll anymore, and a few other things. But we're focusing a little bit more on doing that reforging, which by its very nature, it brings the lore of the faction even more and brings it out. And that essentially gives us the design space to then go and look at secondary objectives even closer, which are inherently linked to how the faction wants to operate, both in terms of game terms, but also lore-wise.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the input.
Yeah, secondary objectives are something that we're very keen to expand. But I have deferred to my more expert rules developers when they tell me, let's nail the core game properly before we start delving into the secondary objectives. But it's definitely an area that we want to expand, probably not for competitive play, but definitely for a balanced narrative play experience, something that enhances playing thematically over playing, the competitive style.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see. Next up is Philippe.
Yes, hello. If
Hello.
you hear me well. First of all, I would like to say thanks for all the great models, and I'm a Wagon player mostly, so I was happy to finally finish all the release and be like, okay, I have a full army, and now you announce Archangels and Crusaders, and I have to start a new army, so thank you very much. I would like to know if you could give us a little detail, a little teaser about the design space that you're going to use with this new religious army, with the Sicari, the Archangel, the Crusaders. Are they going to go more side by side with the Order, like very heavily armored? Are they going to go more in the kind of medieval houses like we had with the household knights and stuff? Can you tease us a little bit? Are they going to be something completely different, or can you tell us a little bit how they're going to look, if they're going to look similar to a previous subfaction, or if they're going to be very different?
Without
We
going
will
into
have a
too
full
much detail.
happy hour on that, just to be clear.
Hmm?
We will have a full happy hour on this
but-
topic. I'm good with a little
A
tease,
quick
but I don't want everyone to think that we're not going to discuss it, because we are.
Oh, no, there's going to be much more detail coming up. But the Crusaders are going to lean more towards the historical. And obviously the Archangel and the Sicari are going to lean a little bit more into the fantastic without going utterly nuts. And the Archangel is not... I'd be very surprised if people have an idea of what the Archangel is.
Okay, yeah. We can guess from you guys that it's not going to be the classical Diablo Archangel that we can imagine. Like, of course, there's going to be a twist. And that's all the tea that I need and want. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Mike, you're next.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question. Has there, for Stavros, has there been any developments with the tabletop RPG books that you're willing to discuss, or will we hear more about those later on with a future happy hour?
Future.
Kots is slaving away at those in his new basement, which is not actually inaccurate. He does have a new basement, and he went in there of his own free will.
In a new country.
Yes. Thank you.
That will definitely be a future, and it is something that is still on the books, so to speak. I'll be here all weekend. Tip your waiters.
What I can assure you is that it's going on. That's all I'll say right now.
Yeah, I wish we could have released it end of this year, but guys, it was inhuman. The paste set was just too intense, and quality would have slipped. One of the things that I absolutely want that I've learned is that when you're building a world, the lore we could link, the art would have suffered tremendously.
Yeah.
Because the faction ideation is incredibly time consuming. You've seen the quality of art that we like putting out for you guys. We refuse to use AI. So there's challenges there. One of the big details, one of the big things I wanted the RPG to have is very good, very detailed, evocative art. Because a picture is 1,000 words, and when you're trying to create a world, a good image can do so much more to focus you in and give you an idea for the feeling of the world than 17 pages that, let's be honest, 90% of the players are not going to read.
Let's see. Dogs of Paint, you're next.
Okay. Next question is when we see some rules or beta rules for 2 versus 2 or group matches, because in
they should mention that, right, Leah?
In our Vanguard is we have figured out some more or less not so good but it works way to play with 2 versus 2, but it's get a lot of traction in our Vanguard, and so we want something official.
I guess. Do you like to engage in narrative play? That would be my question for you. I'm not going to spoil anymore, and you might be able to find official 2v2 rules.
Okay,
you might even like 1v1v1 rules.
You might also be 1v1v1 rules. Yeah, 3 players. Not just 2 players.
When your mate doesn't show up and 2 other guys show up, and all you can do is watch them and drool over their game. Maybe that's no longer the case.
That sounds pretty well. Okay, then we will see. Thank you very much.
So, Christopher, you're next.
All right. So, I was wondering if the battlefield roles would translate over to First Blood in any sort of way. I've got 1 or 2 questions, and I'm just hesitating to ask them all.
So, right now, First Blood is on a, let's say, on a course to find its own, let's say, to do some of its own balancing. So we're not at the point to do that yet. Although this is battlefield roles is something that we like as an idea for Conquest and what it does when it comes to how it helps us explore new design spaces. So yes, but not now. TLAK for TLAK it's the next step.
Okay, and then so when you say the pampered factions are kind of on hold for models, is that on hold for updates? Is that just for models, or will we see some role changes for them in the future?
Which ones would you refer to as pampered?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, it kind of was Daryl's words that I heard. Maybe
I don't
it was
remember
one of
saying
y'all.
the word pampered. Don't
Okay,
put that on me.
my fault. I mean, just the factions here that didn't get any models because they've been kind of getting models recently. Old Dominion and Spires.
Oh, well, they did recently get models. That is true. I don't know that I would have referred to them as pampered, but okay.
No, I used the word pampered when I was talking about the Old Dominion because I know what's coming for them and I know they're going to lose their. So that was the context in which I used the pampered.
Ah, okay.
So, I mean, from a rule standpoint, I will tell you that rules and concepts and ways to expand the game experience of a faction is something that is always on our minds, regardless of whether something is getting new things or not. Let's say right now, for example, Old Dominion is on the playtest table, and we are talking about certain things that make it very powerful. However, at the same time, we are seeing about some great ways to make things that were previously, let's say, not overlooked when it comes to competitive play to make them a little bit more interesting. So we're always looking at all factions, and we're always being critical at their place in the meta in general. So apart from giving you rules for new things, whether something has something lined up or not isn't really just the only criteria for getting rules.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Cody L., you had a question.
I was just curious, like, if you guys have ever thought of models that, if it worked in with the lore, that transform, so you would have, like, let's say one model and then something would happen where it would transform into another model, like, for instance, like maybe a werewolf or something like that, you know? There's some games that have.
Or if you had a faction that had creation forms and destruction forms and they could swap between those. Interesting.
Okay, cool.
Zan, you have a question. I'm going to start moving this along because we're already almost 2.5 hours, which is awesome. But also, I imagine a bio break is going to be needed for everyone very soon. So, Zan, please go, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Oh, maybe he does have a question. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone. Poor Hooligan Tuesday is just joining the call now as we're about to say goodbye to everyone. We appreciate everything that you persevered through today. We shared a lot of stuff for August. It was very, very cool to have everybody involved and to show you as many things as we did and to tease a few things, obviously, that we didn't really show. So I know that you got more to see, more to come. There's some holiday stuff we haven't shown yet. So this was a lot of what is coming up between now through January, but by no means all. And as I think your enthusiasm has showed us, we appreciate you as much as you appreciate us. You feed us with that enthusiasm. So thank you. And with that, I have not announced the next one yet. We will pick a time once we get through Chios and Essen. It will be sometime mid to late October or early November before we have the next happy hour. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
I know what some of you are waiting, but as I'm
Where's the mute button? I know there's a mute button. Where is it?
I will-
Where is it? I know there's a mute button. Hold on.